Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Canon Factory, an elegant podcast for a more civilized age. I'm your host, Sean, and I'm joined by...
Ike Lacey.
Hey, I'm Richie.
Hey, this is Matt.
Brennan Bush.
And Adam.
So we're going to jump right in here, folks, and we're going to jump into our first topic, which, as most of you have seen, because I know you all follow our Twitter, there have been lots of new pictures today from the Entertainment Weekly segment. So we're going to jump right in and talk about a couple of those. Guys, what was your most interesting picture that you thought, or what was one of the main things that stuck out to you in any of them? To me, it was just the adorable porgs. I can't get enough.
I mean, yeah, we knew the porgs were going to be with Chewie, but I don't think we all expected that they would be in the Millennium Falcon.
I love the fact that they're going to leave the island. Like, where are we going from here? Is this one? Has Chewie finally claimed his own family? Like, what's happening? I think me personally, my favorite theory I've seen so far is that porg is actually Han Solo reincarnated, which I think is very plausible.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Oh yeah, it's actually porgs are going to be a big part of the marketing. We're going to see them in the new Han Solo film. We're going to see porgs everywhere. Han's mom and dad, half porg. It's real interesting.
I assume you're being facetious.
Yes.
So on a more serious note,
Yeah,
I think, and maybe I'm the outsider on this, but just the picture of Rey and Luke staring awkwardly into each other's eyes like that's never happened before. That's a joke. I honestly really like the picture. On a more serious note, here's a joke. So, no, I liked it. And I think this is a little corny, and maybe I'm reading into the Rian Johnson love too much, and I'm fanboying already too much over him. But, we've been getting these weird stuff about Luke being... there seems way more came out today.
Right.
But we've been hearing this stuff over the past week about Luke being a Dark Jedi. That doesn't seem to be the case based off what we heard today. But
more of an emo Jedi.
Yeah, but I think there's definitely a contrast of him kind of being in this dark little hole of a... not cave, at least looks like here, but...
Right, looks like one of the main openings to possibly the temple, or one of those huts.
Or a hut of some type, yeah. And then her standing outside of it. I think there's a dynamic. He's kind of tucked away in this little thing. She's kind of out in the light.
Right.
Kind of standing there openly. He's kind of tucked away in this corner. And I don't know. I'm not trying to read into like the semantics of the awkwardness of...
Well, she's very much standing in the known, and he's very much standing in the unknown. Not necessarily that he's dark.
Oh, wow. That was insightful.
You see, that's one of the things I've learned from John F. Kennedy. Reverse the phrase, and people will be interested. It's a great point. I mean, from what it seems, we were definitely ready to jump into discussing those Dark Jedi theories, but for the most part, it definitely seems like Luke is much more depressed. He's made some mistakes. He's here hiding out. And I like this dynamic of Rey coming to train for Luke to just kind of close the door in her face and say, leave. That's very much the opposite of what happened to Luke, where Obi-Wan was just trying his hardest to train Luke his entire life until Luke finally came around, was able to, and welcomed him with open arms. That seems like Rey is going to have to revisit her abandonment issues. On Jakku, she very much had to struggle with being left alone for years and years and years, and she's finally found this purpose in her life, and she gets to this end of this long journey to be rejected once again. So it's going to be interesting to see how she responds from that.
Yeah, on that note, I think my favorite part of this picture, if you look close on Rey's right hip, you can see the blaster that Han Solo gave to her. I'm assuming it's the same blaster.
Yes.
And that was one of my favorite scenes in Force Awakens, where Han gives her the blaster, and she says, I don't need this. I'm not sure what the exact line is. You probably do. But
it was more like he handed her the gun, and he tried to explain how to use it, and she said, just point and shoot. And he said it was a little bit more than that.
Yeah, but before that, where she basically acts like she doesn't need it, and he says, "Yeah, that's why I'm giving it to you."
Okay, yeah.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
That's my favorite line of dialogue that Han gives in the whole movie, because it just it's such a fatherly kind of thing, and it goes back to what Daisy Ridley talked about in this Entertainment Weekly article, where Rey is going from this guy that she just met who has become a father figure in the matter of just a couple of days, who she's just lost, and she's anticipating jumping right into the arms of Luke Skywalker, and does not get the result that she anticipates. It's not quite as Daisy Ridley says, it's not quite the same warmth. There's not a warm welcome. So
yeah, her quote when one of the interviews, she was asked to give her one statement on what the movie was about, and she said, your heroes aren't always what they seem.
Yep.
Which is kind of what spawned this Dark Jedi theories, but it seems more like your heroes may not actually be a hero or anything anymore.
Well, let's think about this though. Luke,
Hit me with it, Brian.
he knows that his friend that he tried to train, his friend's kid that they tried to train, turned to the dark side.
Right.
He knows that his father was on the dark side and is dead now. He knows that now that Han is dead, so it makes sense that he's a little bit depressed.
I don't blame the guy.
I think we're going to see here in this movie that a little bit more into why he went into exile, because he knows there's no way he doesn't know that his friends are in trouble, and that Snoke is on the rise, and that Kylo's on the rise as well. So, I mean, all those together, I think, is what spurned the Dark Jedi theory.
Sure.
But I mean, it makes sense why he's depressed and why he's pissed off.
Yeah, and building on that, we saw today in one of the quotes from the Entertainment Weekly article was that Luke believed Ben Solo to be the chosen one, which is an interesting statement, seeing as both now Luke, Anakin, and now Ben have been considered to be the chosen one by different people in this prophecy that the Jedi seem to keep getting wrong again and again and again. Is this something that you think he's reading about in these books that we've seen in the trailer? Do you think it was just... I'm not sure. In the original trilogy, I believe Obi-Wan mentions to Luke about the Chosen One, but I believe that's the only time we see him hear about it. It seems like Luke is very much the scholar post Return of the Jedi, but could it just be something that he's reading, that he's found official manuscripts from the Jedi? Or what do you guys think about that?
Well, let me interject real quick.
Yeah,
the
sure.
exact quote was Rey saying to Han Solo, "I can handle myself." And he said, "Yeah, that's why I'm giving this to you."
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just a little clarification.
Thank you.
I can't remember your question.
Sure. I also...
It was about a minute.
It was a minute-long question.
It was a great question.
There were words in it, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to recall those words. Basically, I was saying, it seems that Luke is once again the main Jedi in a film that is focusing on the prophecy of the Chosen
Right.
One. Once more, he has chosen a different person to represent that prophecy. Do we think that this is something that he's read in these books that we've seen in the trailer,
Right.
where we see the gloved finger going over the Jedi icon? Or what do you think the main goal is here,
Right.
bringing back the prophecy once again for a Star Wars movie?
Are we sure that he wrote those journals? Or are they?
No, I'm saying, did he read them in those?
Right.
journals?
Because there is definitely something going on in the
I
trailer.
don't think
with
there's
the
much
hand.
writing going on.
I mean,
in
I think that's
anymore.
without like diving off the board of speculation. I don't really know. I think
get
it's
there.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's something that a theme that kind of started Star Wars in the 1970s with this kind of white knight of a character champion, and it seems like as Star Wars has grown, this prophecy has grown, and it seems that, not to use a terrible word and get blasted for, but it's become more gray into the complication of it was obviously Luke. I think if following episode 6, everyone would have said it's Luke.
Right.
But then the prequels come out and they're like, yeah, it definitely seems like it could be Vader. Right. Now they can make a case for it because he's the one who took out Sidious. But now they're trying to bring it back up again. It seems like they're just trying to continually muddy the waters, I think.
Right.
Not in a bad way. I think that's just the way that
and I think
movies as a whole are going.
Now that I think about this more, it could be, we also see in the trailer that, Rey is saying she sees the light, she sees the dark, she sees the balance. And then at this point, it seems like Luke is more bought into training her. And he says it's so much bigger than that. So it could be that he believed the prophecy and he believed that there's going to be balance to the Force, but now that he's seen, once again, somebody else fall under that pressure, that there's so much more to the balance than just light and dark and good and evil. So it'll be interesting to see how they play that out.
I think it's interesting that he hasn't been alone this whole time. I think when I
that's
left
true.
The Force Awakens, I was kind of like, what's he been doing on this island by himself?
Speaking blubbery, fish Scottish accent.
Yeah, and then over the past few weeks, we got some talk about the porgs, and then they kind of let it out that there was some wildlife.
Right.
And now we find out there's been these nuns that kind of speak to him in some sort of fish Scottish language, I guess is how they described it. But I thought it's really interesting for me that I guess that wasn't something that I thought of until we were sitting here looking through the pictures for the 4th time today, that he hasn't been alone on this island the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think we wanted to make Luke alone because it helped us explain what's going on with him a little bit more, that maybe he was marooned there or There was a reason that he couldn't go help his friends. Like, he was a little bit out of character for him not to go help Han and Leia, and they're looking for him in The Force Awakens.
Right.
But here he is alone. So I thought that was or not alone.
Not alone.
I find that really interesting that he's got these nun guys, and I'm kind of curious. They look pretty cool, by the way. But
whose perspective do you think we'll see this from? Because if we're going to see Rey's perspective, we as the audience are probably not going to like Luke very much, at least at the beginning of the movie.
I definitely think Rey is the protagonist of the trilogy,
Yeah.
so it probably will be from her perspective.
So we're probably not going to get a lot of backstory real quick about what's going on with Luke. It's probably going to be like...
I think there's a potential in this movie for half of the audience to walk away not knowing how they feel about Luke Skywalker anymore.
Sure.
I think the potential is there.
But you think that's going to make more people mad? Like the true hardened Star Wars fans? The ones that love Luke from...
I mean, they're probably going to be mad no matter what.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's true.
If Rey is the protagonist and you're trying to get the audience to identify with Rey, then you kind of want the audience to be a little mad.
Yeah, but how are you going to get them to identify with Rey when you have such an untrusted character with Luke?
That's the challenge. But you're going to see everything from her perspective, I presume.
Right.
I presume we're not going to get... That's why I think we won't get a lot of backstory.
I don't think we'll get
about
backstory on anybody in this film. It seems like we're going to go jump right into the story. We're going to tell the story. We're not going to have flashbacks.
there's no time jump.
Right. I believe there's a quote from... I believe it was Ryan Johnson. I'm not entirely sure from the article today that said, these movies aren't Wikipedia articles. We're not going to get fleshed out backstories. That's not what these films are for. These films are here to tell their story that's happening.
Right.
Be prepared to not learn about, the 30 years between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens about what Luke did or what he was up to. We're not going to hear about this academy that fell, and that's just not the story that's being told right now.
I can't imagine that would make a good film. I mean, you think...
Going back?
Yeah, we don't want a Q&A session. It has to be a story.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it'll take away from this if we spend, 30 minutes, 20 minutes going backwards and telling all these stories.
Exposition, we don't want that.
With the rise of all these Star Wars books and canons and things like that, there's when I say canon, comic books, there's the word. There's plenty of spaces to tell these other stories.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Snoke as well as Luke. I'm fine with
there's
not
another
learning.
quote about that as well. The Emperor. Go ahead.
That's what Ryan said in the Entertainment Weekly thing. He said in the original trilogy, we didn't know anything about the Emperor except Luke knew about him. And he was an evil guy behind Vader. Then in the prequels, they explained everything. So I'm assuming that's what this is going to be like, where we're going to find out more about Snoke and see who he is, but not anything in his backstory and how he came to where he was.
Right.
I mean, we really didn't even see Sidious until until episode 6.
We saw him as a hologram.
A hologram in 5. Yeah, that was it. So
even in episode 6, it was like the last third of the movie.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, if not less.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Maybe 20 minutes of screen time.
yeah, I would say I mean, thinking back really quickly, I'm not entirely sure he didn't even talk until the third act of the 6th film.
Yeah.
So
that being said, then we had people complain that The Force Awakens was a remake of Episode 5 or Episode 4.
Right.
Do we think that Episode 5 is going to be?
I don't think so.
It's going to be a remake of Episode 5.
Here's the thing. Ryan has said that he spent the past 3 years of his life to make sure he's not making a remake. That being said, because of how much a rehash The Force Awakens was, there are certain cards dealt that naturally would flow into the Empire Strikes Back plot. We're going to start off with the Resistance having to flee their base, just like they were on Hoth. We're going to see probably the evacuation of Dakar, and we'll probably have one of the first acts in the film where we see Poe running to his fighter and getting destroyed. We're going to have people get separated, just like how they were where Han and Leia wound up going to Cloud City. We're gonna see Finn and Rose go to Canto Bight. So there's gonna be some similarities there, just because narratively there's not much that you can escape from that. I think the difference will be the relationship that Rey and Luke are going to have, and this really interesting ancient civilization almost that is on Ahch-To. You see these.
is that what you're going with, Ahch-To?
That's what they say in the Star Wars show.
All right.
So that's canon enough for me.
So it's not Ahch-To.
It's not Ahch-To, it is Ahch-To.
Okay.
All right.
You've heard it here first, folks. Or you've heard it here about
Exclusive
78.
Exclusive content
to the Canon Factory.
to the Canon
where
Factory.
we, in fact,
Very cool.
make the canon that is absolutely canon.
So
To backtrack real quick before we get too far away from Ike's question, he wanted to talk about these nun characters Did you have anything specific you wanted to bring up about
No,
that?
I just thought. I mean, well, besides the fact that they look kind of cool.
It's really interesting the way they look because I look at the one on the right's face, and it's very much a sea turtle. And they spoke
Right.
about this place that they are this temple as being very much a conduit in the Force, and it seems like they're saying that these creatures have kind of evolved throughout the ages, trying to get closer to that point
Right.
on this island. To see them kind of like resemble that in the face, like to see almost like a sea turtle has come out to take care of this thing on land is really cool.
I'm kind of curious if they're going to go the route of not. I mean, they're obviously sentient because they can have a conversation.
Absolutely, and
they have clothes on.
Right.
They can have a conversation. So I'm wondering if the situation is a bit what we got a glimpse into with Rogue One and maybe have a Church of the Force. I mean, they did in the Force Awakens. To kind of maybe there's some sort of Force sensitivity there /
Right.
wielders, maybe. I don't know. They're there to worship. I mean, obviously, it's a small island.
Right.
I mean, we've seen that from the trailers. We saw that in The Force Awakens. So they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
And my guess is they've chosen to stay there for a reason. I mean, there's a landing platform for a ship. So.
Sure.
Because, we saw the Falcon there. So they have to be there for a reason.
Going back to what Ryan John says in the Entertainment Weekly article, he said they've been there for thousands of years. They essentially keep the structures on the island up. So they're there to maintain.
Yeah, they're definitely there for a reason. So
yeah, and I think this ties in again to Luke's statement of it's so much bigger than that. The original trilogy and the prequels was just focused on the Force in terms of the Jedi and the Sith. They've made a point in saying that Kylo and Snoke are not Sith. Jedi, is Luke a Jedi? Is he the last Jedi? Are they not going to become Jedi further on? We have the Guardians of the Wills. We now have the Church of the Force. We have the nuns. There's so many more sects within the Force now.
Right.
So I think he's trying to say, this balance of the Force that we're so focused on is so much bigger because there's more than two sides. It's more of a circle, and you have all these different people from different sources. So I'm interested to see how they play that out in terms of the history of the Force and how exactly it's viewed in the galaxy as a whole now.
Well, don't forget the Force wielders on Mortis in the Clone Wars series.
Right. Yeah. Who knows how close that is to reality? Was that we don't know how real Mortis is, but absolutely, it's a good point.
And tying in Mortis, I'm still hoping that Luke turns into a Force Eagle. That's
Again,
personally.
You personally and you alone hopes that Luke calls out to make America great again as a Force Eagle.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome.
This is Brennan Bush, ladies and gentlemen.
Just so we're clear, it's first time Brennan is the believer in that Force theory, but we're not. I don't know if we
100%.
quite consider it Canon Factory.
No, it's not at all. But
if we're honest, Brennan attempted to make a coup and take over the Canon Factory, and his first edition on the floor was this Force Eagle, and it's safe to say the people loved it.
It's growing some traction.
And I'm real nervous. One of the other pictures I really enjoyed was our first look at Canto Bight. What I like about this is it's very much a prequel city, prequel movies. You've much more of a bustling city type of thing that we never saw in the original trilogy and that we didn't really see in The Force Awakens. We briefly see Hosnian Prime, which is very much like a Coruscant planet. I would have loved to have seen that a bit more. But to get to see Canto Bight now, it looks really interesting.
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed about Canto Bight is that, and this could just be because it's a Star Wars style of architecture, but it does look a lot like some of the mock-ups for Disney's Star Wars park that they're opening. If you look at
It's a good point.
some of the wide shots,
I did not
think about that till just now, and that's a really
I believe
good point.
they've already stated that the Star Wars land is its own planet. It's not one of the other ones, but it could be related to this one.
So then, my theory that Disney is opening a Star Wars themed casino,
probably
just throw that out.
Yeah, not considering that it's a children's theme park whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and say that it's probably a little off base.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with having a casino where children are allowed. I don't.
Richie Worrell, our moral compass of the podcast. But yeah, I like the speeders. I've seen a couple of leaked photos or drawings of these speeders where I think these will be used by the Canto Bight police team.
Yeah, I think there was a toy that leaked specifically.
Yeah, that's I think that's what I saw. These are when I first saw the picture, I was kind of I don't know how I feel about these because it kind of looks like the people sit outside of them, like it's not enclosed. It looks like a TIE fighter that just kind of got stripped of most of its parts. So I don't know if that's telling as to the planet's allegiance, if they kind of lean more towards the First Order. I know, or is it kind of more just like a Cloud City type planet where it's very much a Switzerland, a neutral that happens to have the fight drawn to them?
Yeah, it's speaking of TIE fighters too. I'm looking at the photo of Kylo Ren's TIE fighter, which looks really cool.
Is that what it is? I
Yeah,
knew there
it's
was a
called
name.
Silencer.
I knew there was a
Yes.
name to it, but I
Okay.
couldn't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's. I'm really interested. I hope there are some like aerial battles that Kylo's involved in.
I think that will be the opening Act 1 where we see the evacuation of Dakar. If my theory is accurate, that we'll see. I know there was a picture of it looked like larger ships. I thought they were going to be the Starhawks, which I think is what they're called from the Aftermath trilogy, but Pablo said they're not defending Dakar. So I think it'd be really cool if we do see Kylo in that flight to just see how much of his grandfather and his father that he has. in
Yeah,
him.
absolutely.
Am I the only one that's sick of Kylo busting his nut over everything Darth Vader? Like, first he's worshiping the mask, now he's building his ships after it. I don't know.
No, I think I disagree. I think what I would like to see, the fanboy in me would like to see Kylo Ren go to Mustafar.
I think we all want to see Darth Vader's castle again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And however unsupported certain leaks on certain websites are, if you take the best parts of those leaks, one of my favorite was that Kylo spends part of the movie trying to find out more about Darth Vader and tracing some of the.
Well, I think
footsteps.
Leland. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he's on the. That's just not a name that we bring up all the time. That's what it is. He's on the. So I'm brain dead. The. Sean, give it to me.
I do not know of which you speak.
He's with Pablo and Matt. Sorry.
Okay, the
He's on Story Group.
Yeah,
I beat all you guys to it. Just so we're clear.
telekinetically told it to you before you said it.
Thanks.
So
I appreciate it.
you're
Yeah,
welcome.
Leland, if I'm not mistaken, specifically is strongly hinted on an episode of the Star Wars show that it most likely will not be the last time. It will be Rogue One that we see.
Right.
They have a whole actually like blueprint of the rooms that are inside of it and everything to the detail.
So that could be where that rumor comes from.
Now, do you think that? I haven't thought about this until you just said it, but I think it'd be really cool if we don't see it. Very cool. If we don't see it in episode 8, but we instead see it in episode 9, where maybe Snoke doesn't make it past this episode, and that Kylo becomes a kind of this leader of the First Order, and he makes his base of operations the Vader's castle on Mustafar. That's probly.
You think they're gonna kill him off that
that's-
soon, though?
Well, think about it though.
who knows?
What's something that?
I mean, we are making our own canon, so
Come back with
This is my
better
headcanon.
legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the villains are always talking. I mean, all 3 trilogies.
Right.
Well, I guess we haven't seen that yet in this one, but it's always I can overthrow the Emperor.
Right. That was another thing I was
So
thinking
what if
about.
they actually gave us that?
Right. I was thinking about that. We see it, in the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, where his apprentice overthrew him, and we see Vader and Sidious fall together. But what if we see the apprentice finally?
Really,
take
we
over
see
the
Vader
master?
overthrowing Sidious.
We
I
do.
mean,
He just very short reign. So
Yeah, I mean, if you guys listening at home, I don't know if you read the Vader comics at all. A lot of Vader's dialogue anyway involves plans to overthrow the Emperor.
right.
That's just kind of a theme that runs through, and that's kind of a holdover.
I
from
would say
Sith.
even in the mall comics that just
Yeah.
finished were very much like that as well.
Yeah.
That was his whole entire plan the whole time.
Always want more.
But that is
Yeah.
kind of a Sith thing.
Right. That is a Sith thing, and
It's-
they're not Sith.
They're not Sith.
And I will say this: what we have seen Kylo say of Snoke is he seems to be very partial to him. He very much looks up to him. Saying the Supreme Leader is wise, and
but
I
not
don't
as
think
much as Vader. Though,
we don't really see Vader say those things about the Emperor.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought of that.
I mean, within personal confines, I mean, it's just Kylo speaking to his father that he knows he's about to stab in the heart. So he's gonna speak his mind for the most part, and I think he legitimately looks up to Snoke. Because
is that adoration or is that fear that he looks up to Snoke?
I think it's adoration because you see Kylo. He himself felt abandoned as a child. He got shipped off to Jedi boarding school and forgotten by his parents. He had Luke, who's very much trying to be a little bit distant, it seems like, to kind of adhere to those Jedi ways of not having attachments. So you have this young boy who has all this thrust upon him, and he didn't handle the pressure well. It sounds like, from what Leia said, that Snoke seduced him and kind of just talked him up and said, like, you know, I don't know what he said specifically, but these your friends and family aren't who they are, who they say they claim to be, and kind of brought him over. So I think he legitimately views Snoke as some kind of weird deformed dad figure. I don't know.
Maybe bringing it back around
Sure.
to your original question. You brought
Yes.
this up, and since we're back on the topic of Snoke, I'll bring it back around to the
Okay.
picture of Canto Bight. You mentioned the possibility of the First Order having some contacts with Canto Bight.
Yes.
And you were just making the speculation solely on the fact that these, you know, I don't know what they're going to call them, but these speeders of some type that the cops have may look like TIE fighters. I mean, I don't think, based on other things, that's that far-fetched of an idea.
Right.
Mostly because the First Order somehow has financed the building of Starkiller Base. Who knows how? I mean, granted, we had 30 years of nothingness from, you know, the end of what would be the aftermath, literally the books, to going out into unknown space and starting the First Order to some extent.
We see it a bit in the Bloodlines book.
Which I haven't dove too far into just yet, but
Right.
so they've gotten this money, and also you got Snoke with this fly, golden looking.
Yeah, he does look fly as hell.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He looks pretty sweet. So he's
Hugh
wearing.
Hefner stats.
I mean, yeah, he definitely. It seems to, I mean, from the pictures that have leaked so far and have gone around, and the Lego that has gone around, he's definitely wearing this like gold. I don't know if that's confirmed anywhere officially.
We see it in his picture a bit, and then also in the pop figure that was leaked.
The pop figure, yeah.
is
I'm just trying to think
gold.
if there's anything official. I don't think there has been yet.
Sure.
But anyway, we're going to see him in this golden costume of some
Right.
type. So obviously he has some infatuation with money.
Right.
These Praetorian guards look like, in my opinion, even more ornate than the original Praetorian guards.
Oh, absolutely.
Or whatever they were. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
they were just
exactly.
called the Red Guards. These
the
are
Red
called
Guards.
the Praetorian after the
Royal
Romans.
Guards.
Yeah, the royal guards. So
Yeah.
so they're even looking more ornate. So obviously they have this influx of money, and they're bringing in this big money maker, a casino.
Right.
You know, look around at it. You know, so I don't think that jumping into the First Order, having this connection with Canto Bight is going to be a long stretch by any means.
Yeah.
So I don't know where we're going to go with that. I didn't really pose another question.
No, sure.
But
I mean, from what we saw in the Bloodlines book, we see this is I want to say 4 or 5 years before the Force Awakens. I'm probably wrong, but we see Leia in the Senate, and there's very much a division in the Senate. You have the populists and the centralists. Leia is a populist. She believes in kind of like states' rights. So each planet is a part of the big picture, the Galactic Republic, but they very much have localized government on the planets, their own leaders. Centralists really want the Empire back. They don't want the evil, well, most of them don't want the evil tyranny of an emperor, but they do believe that you need one figurative person leading the galaxy. And that's kind of like one of the main plot points is we see the First Order basically trying to get senators on their side in order to kind of bring people over. My question is if maybe one of the senators who represented Canto Bight is one of those people who went to the side of Snoke and kind of started to help fund his war machine.
I mean, that would make sense on how they could, you know, basically come out of nothing into something that was however many times the size of a Death Star.
Right.
Which, you know.
Well, and how long does that take to build? Because
Right.
the Death Star, it took 15 years?
It was a while.
I mean,
I don't know.
It's 19 years between Episode 3 and Episode 4, and they're building it at the end of Episode 3.
Good point.
So it's every bit of 19 years.
Right.
And
if I'm not mistaken, because of the logistics,
right.
the second one took a much shorter period of time because they didn't have to do the R&D to figure out how to make it.
They didn't have to do the R&D, and they focused on making the laser first before everything
Right.
else. So it was operational before it was complete. Other than that, I mean, Starkiller was built presumably, you know, this is speculation, not confirmed, but I did see in a book that they did kind of some measurements of planets, and Starkiller Base has the exact measurement of the planet Ilum, which we here have always kind of assumed to be had been turned into Starkiller Base.
I mean, I feel like Pablo's really had to twist his words to make sure that he doesn't answer that one. So
yeah, it's tough because, you know, there's things that are pretty clear, but you want the material to answer, which is completely understandable.
There's canon material that suggests that there was Empire related equipment
Yeah.
on the planet.
Yeah,
of
the
Ilum.
Ahsoka Tano book.
Yeah, we've seen the Ahsoka Tano book
Yeah.
after episode 3, even that they're mining. The Empire's mining.
The Empire's there and they're actively mining it.
That's probably the kyber crystals that were partially used for the star the first Death Star.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's left.
So, Sean, why would that be something they wouldn't just go, yeah, it's Ilum? What are they?
Well, I mean, you don't want to just tweet out facts. I think it's something it's hard if you're the creator of content. It's not necessarily going to be told in a major story, but you want everything to be told via a story. Would you rather have someone from the story group tweet, yeah, Ilum was Starkiller Base, or would you rather see a comic book or a book talking about the construction of Starkiller Base and seeing the decision-making process and why they chose Ilum,
Yeah,
I think
I'd much rather read that than just read a 5-second tweet and be like, okay, now I know.
So maybe not in a movie, but like a
Right, might
comic
not,
or
probably,
something.
again, like, not Wikipedia articles, so we might see it in a book, we might see it in a comic.
Yeah,
Don't-
I mean, there's still a lot of canon to be had in between.
we're
return-
always
I think-
here to consume that canon.
Yeah.
I think too, like you don't not necessarily want to even upstage the canon. You don't want to upstage the people that have worked on it, that have
Right, you have-
curated the stories themselves, the authors.
The amount of people who have
writers.
written content for Star Wars outside of the book, outside of the movies, is incredible. So you want to give those talented people spaces to tell stories.
Right.
Every time you give a fact away, you're possibly removing the possibility of a story. So
And,
Yep.
they-
I
and
fully
like
understand
I was just gonna say, there's a lot of canon to be had between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Still,
30 years.
Yeah, that's a long time in Star Wars time.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get prequel part 2. We'll see 3 movies in there.
Yeah,
I loved the Aftermath books, and
Ah.
they were like.
I binged.
I
those.
don't remember what time frame it occurred over, but it was like it was less than 10 years. It was like, if I'm not mistaken, only 3 or 4 years.
After
in it-
episode 6.
Yes,
Oh,
correct.
it's shorter than that. I think
It's not shorter, yeah.
I mean, we saw.
I thought there was a pretty big jump between the second and the third one,
I
but
believe maybe total is about 3 or 4 years.
max, right? So
No, not even, because I believe Han and Leia got pregnant with Ben
that's a
on
good point.
Endor, and we see he's being born at the end of the third
At
book.
the end of the third book, so,
So
it
it's
couldn't
over
have
a
been
year.
less than a year. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been over the course of a year.
That's just
And I
some
felt like
weird
that was
space anatomy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. No, I'm pretty sure she's human.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, that was a large amount of content that told a huge story that we're going to get more of as soon as the game comes out.
Right,
as
yeah,
soon as we get Battlefront 2,
I'm starting to dive into
So-
Battlefront 2, the book, and it's great.
So
Inferno
I
Squad.
Inferno
actually
Squad,
didn't
yeah.
realize that because I've only read the first Aftermath book.
Right.
That it's only
Ooh,
Folks, if
spoilers!
you want to go ahead and rewind and warn yourself, there will be spoilers following.
Yeah, we should have warned you guys at the beginning, but it's okay. But yeah, that's really interesting that the Aftermath books only span like 4 years. I guess I was under the impression that the third book would pick up pretty close to the beginning of Force Awakens.
No,
but
very
No,
much no.
no, no, no.
Very
There-
much no.
there
Yeah, I
is
mean,
a ton.
We
don't
I,
know.
I guess I won't tell you. We'll cover that in the future.
Well, I mean, just the Battle of Jakku, just the point of the
Okay,
Battle of
and we're
Jakku was... Well, I don't think this is necessarily...
Go.
The Battle of Jakku is where the Empire ends.
Right.
So that doesn't...
The title of the book in the sentence.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So that the third book covers those things.
Title drop.
Title drop. So what I'm getting at is, it couldn't have gone that far.
Right.
It can't, because we know the Empire didn't end immediately before,
Right,
the Force Awakens.
there's,
So
That's true.
It starts out with, in the books you see like these Imperial remnants, who are these Imperial remnants that kind of have formed their own government on planets where, the Moffs or whoever was left in charge of that planet's government have just kind of, stuck themselves in there and held on to rule, even though the Empire as a whole may no longer exist.
Sean just got a little distracted there because Adam is massaging his back with what looks to be an ancient Sith relic.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's going on over here, and I'm not sure I'm going to have to go wash my shoulder off. But Adam is certainly, multitasking. All right, so what other pictures do we have here that we want to jump into?
Yeah, so let's talk about Kylo Ren real fast. I think, this is really the first good look of him that we've gotten.
And that scar
with
makes it
the
not so
scar.
much of a good look.
Yeah, and not so good. But that's something I was actually worried about in some of the earlier photos that were coming out. I can't remember if it was in the trailer, the first trailer that we
It was in the
got.
first trailer.
So it didn't look like the scar quite matched the wound that he was given by Rey in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
But then looking at this photo, which is like a pretty clear photo of the scar, it looks gnarly. It's kind of what I wanted.
It doesn't
scar
look.
to like.
The scar doesn't look subdued. I think he's just moved.
No,
it.
he just moved it. Ryan
Yeah.
just said it looked kind of goofy going off the bridge of his nose, so it made a little sense to move it over there. But no, it's a good dark side scar.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Oh, he looks menacing. That's
Yeah.
what we want.
I also want to note though, as we're looking at this close-up picture, still no yellow eyes. So
Yeah.
don't know if that's a Sith exclusive or if that's just some dark
Exclusive
side.
content.
If he
to
still
the
has
Sith.
still has plenty
Yellow
of,
eyes.
and it's coming in as DLC, available in the third quarter. But so I'm not sure if he's still confused about the light and the dark. If he still has that inner turmoil, which is very much a large part of his character, and if he's still feeling the loss of his father, and if that is something that he regrets.
Yeah, I mean that's really a key question of this trilogy. That's really, I think, if I could have one thing answered right now, it would be: is this trilogy another redemption story for Kylo Ren, or are we going to see perhaps a Star Wars trilogy that doesn't end so well?
Well, the prequel trilogy didn't end entirely well.
That's true.
Arguably.
And I was thinking
Didn't
about
have
it.
much of a choice.
I was thinking about it today. I mean, are we doing like generation skips a generation for things to happen?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
So if we're gonna see, this is Vader's prequels. This is Kylo's prequels. Same
exactly.
thing.
Could be.
Could be, and we see later on a later date with Lord Kylo Ren reigning over.
Yeah. I mean, we
Um,
may still be here in 10 years, lined up, ready to watch the next trilogy.
We'll be here. But one counterpoint to that is we do have the same government structure that we had in the original trilogy that we didn't have in the prequels. So we do have this underdog of a resistance going up against this large empire. I'm not sure how much of a story that is if you have and the underdog goes in to take out and no they lose. It's you have they want to tell a story of Appalachian State beating Michigan, not Michigan just beating Appalachian State like another day. A good reference for all you huge college football fans out there. I know we have plenty.
Yes, we do.
So let me ask you guys a question. I think this raises a good point that we haven't tied into this is
Sure.
we have two major characters trying to end the Jedi. Nobody's trying to keep the Jedi alive. So how do we end this
Well, is Rey
series? Well, okay, maybe Rey. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right, but what I'm getting at, we got Luke and then the Jedi.
Yeah.
Snoke doesn't seem like he's trying to keep him around.
No.
So
Same thing with Kylo. He did kill a large percentage. I'd say 99%. If I was going to.
I would say all but one, maybe two, debatable on the second one.
Right. Yeah. 1.5. I'll give you.
So yeah, I mean, then where does that leave the state of this trilogy?
Right.
I mean, not that the Jedi necessarily means that all the good people don't win.
Right.
But that is to this point how we've understand the Star Wars universe, that the good people are the Jedi, the bad people are the Sith.
Right.
End of story. I know that they're trying to muddy the waters on that, but we got Luke trying to end the Jedi. We got Snoke definitely not trying to keep them around.
Right.
He's trying to find Luke, presumably to kill him.
Right.
So, what is going on? I mean, I don't think that leaves a lot of good options at this point if we look at it from that perspective of how this could potentially end.
Yeah.
But here's my question: why do we want to save the Jedi? If each instance of the Jedi is still thinking the next person is the chosen one, I mean, how bright can they be if they're still looking for it?
That's a good point. I mean, my question is from a marketing standpoint, can Disney get rid of the word Jedi? Because from a storytelling
That's a good point.
standpoint,
That's a really
it
good point.
absolutely seems like the Jedi would end. They're showing us all these different sects in the Force, these different groups of people who still follow the Force or worship the Force or different things, but just don't have the term Jedi.
Right.
So are we going to see them kind of bring up a new one and throw that term Jedi away like they've now thrown the word Sith away?
I mean, can we think of another example of a word that they've retired in that way? And I know the obvious one was probably Sith.
But Sith is so minor.
They didn't even say it in the original trilogy.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. It was on a
It's not
Kenner
as
toy
big.
or something.
Right.
It's not as big
Yeah.
as Jedi. I mean, we have 2 films now in the saga, right? 2 maybe, yeah, two films with the
Return of
word
the
Jedi
Yeah, Last
in the
Jedi.
title.
Right. So are you going to throw that away? Is my
Right.
question. Narratively, absolutely would be really great storytelling to get rid of, to see the good side prevail, but to see the long-term hero fail, in a way, to see Luke's goal at the end of Return of the Jedi. Yoda tells him, "Pass on what you have known." Basically like bring the Jedi back. If for him to
Well,
not,
no, he
to
said
not do
pass
that.
on what you know. He never said bring.
Right, but he does attempt. He does have all these students and teaching them to be Jedi.
But where'd that get him?
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Narratively, he probably should end the Jedi. He's probably right. Will they? Is a different question.
It's a good
To
question.
answer your question, midichlorians. A question that I'm glad we did away with, or a word that we did away with.
Are they still?
Well, I measured yesterday. I have 17,673 midichlorians, so I don't know where you're at.
You heard it here.
Well,
folks.
Pablo just tweeted about it, didn't he?
I don't
If
know.
I'm not mistaken, he just got into this huge Twitter battle that basically he's
Pablo
like,
in a Twitter battle?
midichlorians basically mean nothing. He was like, basically, you can have one midichlorian and still end up being the Luke Skywalker of the universe.
If you're talking to your Gillette razor about midichlorians.
Gillette razor, yes,
if
please.
you're talking to that.
Have we talked about that before? I felt like I was the only one who ever noticed that back in the day. He's obviously talking
it's
into a
very
Gillette
much
razor.
They're all throughout the prequel trilogy. They use their comm is a Gillette
razor.
Yeah,
Yes.
minus the razor.
Thank you. I'm
All
not
right.
crazy. I'm
Getting
not
back
the
on track here.
Listen, I'll talk about razors all day.
Also, great time to bring up our ad for Gillette razors. Just
Totally
kidding.
sponsoring
Yeah, totally.
this podcast in an alternate universe.
All three people that are listening can go buy those Gillette razors.
I feel like
Why?
in podcast fashion, it should be Dollar Shave Club.
Guys,
Dollar
trying to
Shave
get-
Club, yes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Guys trying to get a podcast done. You guys are BSing about razors.
All right, Professor Bush, continue.
Why do we want what's the advantage of bringing the Jedi back though? Like I understand why do we want to keep them around?
From a story standpoint,
Or from
Or
the
from,
galaxy
like,
standpoint. Or
I'm a
from,
schmuck in the galaxy.
Right.
Like I'm in the galaxy.
Sure.
Why bring the Jedi back?
Historically, they're the peacekeepers of the galaxy. There hasn't been a ton of constant peace in the galaxy since the prequels.
So you're saying they've been worthless so far?
I'm saying before the prequels, they were very much did their job. We had, I think the Sith Empire was around 1,000 years before the prequels, so we had about 1,000 years of basic peace with the Jedi around. But that 1,000 years led them to kind of claim a bit more power than they should have. Being generals in an army is very much away from what the Jedi should have been. So if Luke can bring the Jedi back in a way where they're very much third-party people, and to say, we'll come in and we'll help those who are truly helpless, then that's fine. But if they're going to become the Jedi of the prequel trilogy and just hop on board and become the generals of the Republic Army, then I don't think the galaxy wants the Jedi back.
I mean, I'm just saying in my eyes, the Jedi are evil.
well, then you are lost.
You heard it here first, folks. Brennan Bush is blind.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks. Brennan Bush says that the Jedi are worthless. He is a Sith confirmed.
Team Anakin.
What kind of stories do we want to hear? More stories about the Jedi, or do we just, because A New Hope, sure, Obi-Wan is a Jedi,
Right.
but A New Hope's not really a story about the Jedi that much. You get kind of ancient
does end in the
backstory.
Return of the Jedi, but
Right. Well, the final it ends, it builds into it. Right. But the first movie, the more I think about it, it's not like the other ones in that it focuses more on Luke, who eventually obviously becomes a Jedi.
Ooh,
But,
spoiler alert.
sorry for those of you.
For those, yes.
But what kind of stories do we want to tell?
Right.
What do we want to hear? Do we want more stuff?
And I think it's a good point because we also have this huge backlog of Legends material. That we still we
don't speak that name here.
I know we're not the Legends Factory here, folks, but we do have this huge story about Luke bringing back the Jedi and having this whole Jedi Order, and those stories are out there. And we could have them retell those stories in different ways in movie form, or we can go a completely different way, and we can have brand new Star Wars stories. So me personally, would not be offended if we went away from this whole Jedi v Sith thing that we've always seen.
It is. One other thing on that point. What makes a Jedi a Jedi? Can you imagine Star Wars without the lightsaber?
Well, we've seen now Finn and Han use lightsabers without being Jedi.
Yeah, so we could have that.
Technically, Rey as well.
But are we just kind of leaving behind the word Jedi, but we're still going to have Jedi and everything but name? Like we're still going to get the Force use and the flips
they
and
get
lightsabers.
I'm not against having the light side users, but I'm just saying the name Jedi. I don't understand why it needs to be around.
I think if you get now I know this contradicts a little bit of what you said, but I want to bring up the point. You're talking about from a marketing standpoint for Disney, they removed the word Jedi. I think they removed the word Jedi. Yeah, that's a name that they've built a marketing around. That's a term that my mom, who doesn't really watch Star Wars and doesn't going to listen to a Star Wars podcast unless it's mine. Hey, mom, she that's a word she's going to understand.
Right.
But the removal of the word in this introduction that they're going now with the Church of the Force, they got the Book of the Wills. They can tell way more stories about Force-sensitive characters that aren't Jedi. So they'll have the ability to tell more stories, I think, about people who matter in the universe, but aren't, the gods of the universe, like a Luke Skywalker or an Anakin or.
Yeah, I mean, we see Maz Kanata, not a Jedi, but a Force user. She very much says that she never became a Jedi, but she uses the Force to see things. And there's a deleted scene of her Force pulling down rocks on top of Stormtroopers' heads. So while that's not technically canon, it is something that the storytellers are considering. In Star Wars Rebels, we see Sabine wielding the Darksaber and reacting to it. She says, this it's starting to feel lighter, the saber, implying that she's having a relationship through the living Force with this weapon, because that's what a lightsaber is. So if we continue to see these, Chirrut, of course, is a great example as well.
Is it a lightsaber if a Jedi doesn't make it, though?
I mean, yeah.
It's a saber of light. So I would say yes.
Still a kyber crystal.
But it's not, though. It's a dark saber.
It was a dark saber even when the Mandalorian Jedi made it.
It was a saber that was dark. So it was
But
a dark
still,
saber.
light.
Okay.
It's a good question. I mean,
It's not a wrong question.
The key question is,
I mean-
does it look awesome and make cool movies?
Yes.
That's really the.
I mean,
That's
really
ultimately
boiled
what
down to.
Disney wants, isn't it?
Is it awesome?
But
If
does
the
it make
answer's-
noise?
I was just gonna say, I think it really, whether or not Disney can shed the word Jedi from our Star Wars vocabulary, really rests upon this film and the next. If The Last Jedi is an amazing film that
Which it will be.
opens fans' eyes to the possibility of a Star Wars future without the Jedi, I think that from a marketing standpoint and from a story standpoint, fans will get on board with that. If you love Star Wars, you'll get on board with that.
New fans, I'd say. If they're losing Jedi, I think they're trying to gear towards newer fans. If they're going to keep it, I think they're trying to hold on to the original.
Yeah, I think they recognize too that those people who grew up with the original trilogy as the main trilogy, which some of us did. There's a group of those people who are always going to be mad at the new content because they're always just going to find reasons to complain. So they're not really going to try to focus on them, because also from a business standpoint, they probably make up about 1% of the demographic, and I'd say probably about 75 to 80% make up of the demographic is probably very casual fans.
You heard it here first. We're the 1%, boys.
One
I would
percenters.
argue we're the 0.5%.
Probably.
We have our head on our shoulders until we don't.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a single person I know who either didn't like Force Awakens or didn't like Rogue One, who was a fan of the old trilogy. It's one or the other.
Right.
Most people, if they didn't like Force Awakens, they liked Rogue One. And it was those people that would complain about Force Awakens being a New Hope clone.
Right.
Those people, most of them, in my experience, loved Rogue One.
Yeah, but Rogue One's a gritty action movie.
That's true, but I think it's important to say that because Rogue One wasn't made by George Lucas. It was made by Disney. It was made by a new Lucasfilm, basically.
And it also doesn't matter because these people are going to watch the movie no matter what. So
Yeah.
Disney also is going to cater to them.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we're
as long
not-
as Star Wars is in the title, they're going to go watch it.
Yeah.
So it does not matter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, it's like you said. These are like 1%.
Right.
So
I mean, at the end of the day, I think you always say this, which makes, whenever I come up with a theory or an idea, you always say, could you explain that to my mom? And
Right.
And I think that's exactly the type of thing that these storytellers have to do as well, because again, 70% of these people are casual fans who, if you're going to go into the deep lore of Star Wars and say, these people are this, and this, and everyone's going to walk out just confused.
Right.
There's a large majority of people who thought Rogue One was a sequel to The Force
Oh,
Awakens.
yeah. A large swath. Then we're
Right.
willing to admit.
Right.
I know, because we don't want to admit that, because we think, like,
I
everybody
won't
loves
lie,
it as
I'll
much as we
say,
do.
Why did Rey get so much,
Right, but
facial
there
reconstruction?
was-
did they recast Rey?
I mean, my mom, she's with it, and I had to explain to her, like, when it first came out, I was like, hey, yeah, that new... Oh, she's like, a new Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
a continuation? And I was like, no, I think this was before the trailers came out.
Sure.
But I had to explain to her, yeah, like, no, this is one that happened before
Yeah.
the one you watched back in,
No, but there,
when you were in high school, Mom.
and there are people who walked out of Rogue One and say, wow, I can't believe they killed Rey.
Right.
And just like, that's a large majority of the audience. So we can't have all these complex ideas and theories that aren't going to hold.
Yeah,
Guys,
it's the
can
thing.
Can I interject real quick?
We're going to have a brief interjection here.
Brief
If you could
interjection.
just hold
Hold
real
on.
quick.
Everyone hit their intermission button. Let's pull Brennan Bush.
We're not your typical Star Wars fans. We all have wives that love us. We're not living at home with our moms, even though I like to mention
You've
his
heard it
mom
here first. Brennan
multiple
has
times.
just insulted the entirety of the Star Wars fan base, which are our large amount of our demographic.
Sorry, I forgot
Sorry
to shave
to
my
everybody.
beard around my neck last night. Brennan Bush.
A little edgy, guys. A little edgy.
The next segment is going to be about us saying goodbye to Brennan, as this is his last podcast with us.
I shine very, very bright and die very quickly.
He is our shining nebula.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's just like what you said. It just kind of, I shake my head at some of the theories that I read online. Just going back to like what Ike says, though, it's so true about if I can't explain this to my mom, it's probably not gonna happen.
My favorite thing is that Snoke's trying to steal the soul of Kylo Ren. That the whole
yeah.
reason he wants to transfer his essence into his body. I'm like, yeah, that'll go real well.
Yeah.
I mean, he is though.
You heard it here first, folks. Snoke is in fact trying to perform an exorcism and join Kylo's body. But I think that's almost wrap time. I don't know if you guys have anything else to talk about.
No, I mean let's keep going a little bit here.
We can talk about the Han Solo movie.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Sure.
I've been very vocal in our group, in our Slack chat, that I think with the actors that they have coming in and the new director, that this has a possibility of being one of the best Star Wars, actually, if not the best Star Wars movie that they've put out there. Now that's me being a new fan, not having a diehard love for the original trilogy and an extreme hatred towards the prequels. But
Long live prequel memes.
But I think with the characters they have set up and the whole premise of it, I think it'd be a great movie. And we did a poll on that. I think I was the only person in our Twitter that poll that said they were actually thinking that it could be a definitely good movie, not cautious about my feelings towards it.
Yeah. If you go to our Twitter at Canon Factory, we posted a poll today just asking
The Canon Factory.
We posted a poll today asking just throwing it out there how people generally feel about the Han Solo movie. And I personally, I do feel differently from Brennan. Me personally.
You get flagged soon.
Yeah. I have concerns, and it's mostly in the purpose of this film. And that I would say that I think the best part of the character of Han Solo is that we don't know much about him. So I guess I don't feel that I need a Han Solo origin story. But having said that, there are things that are talked about in the original trilogy, like Han and Lando's relationship, or how Han and Chewie met each other, or the stealing of the Millennium Falcon. These are things that I would like to see. And I think that the movie could be good in that it could show us these stories that we've already heard about in the original trilogy. Just show us details of those stories without showing us a teenage Han Solo, or it can show us these things without giving us too much of Han Solo's backstory to the point where it ruins the mystique of his character. So, I have my doubts about the movie, especially since there's been production woes. They did just switch directors, but at the same time, I am a huge Ron Howard fan, and it's not like I don't have faith in his ability to make a good movie.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's just I'll probably this time next year in 2018, I'll probably have seen Han Solo and loved it, but
right.
Here's the question though: do you think we're going to see a Kessel Run?
Ooh.
I don't see how they couldn't.
Yeah.
I think there's like some key things like that us as the 1%, going back to that analogy, I think there's going to be some things that we'll be like, did they really have to tell that? But I think there would be a lot of people that those fan service things bring them money, man. I mean, they reshot Rogue One to add in Darth Vader at the end because they were afraid that of something without Darth Vader that people were going to be a little confused.
And let's not lie.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't not awesome, but we all also need to admit at this table that it was a 100% fan service.
it was.
So I think...
But if we're being
nice
also 100% honest, if we're being 100% honest, we like the fan service.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And so I think when you ask a question like, is there going to be a Kessel Run, Are we going to see Chewie get his life debt? Are we are we going to see the epic thing that happened that made Han Solo get the Millennium Falcon in a game of sabacc? Yeah, we have to see those things, and that's not because I think we want to see them or not want to see them. It's because Disney's like, yes, cash cow, 100%. Like people will show up to watch it, and I know that I'm going to watch it either if it's in there or not. Which means that I'm probably just as much as a loser as the next guy, and I need to remember to shave my neck beard tonight. But true story. But I'm just getting at the point that I think there's a few of those things they can't not put in. I would be so surprised if they didn't put a few of those things.
I mean, basically the prequels are stemmed off of the conversation that Obi-Wan has with Luke in Episode 4, talking about the Clone Wars, about the Dark Times, and about how he served with Luke's father. And they're going to take those same little sound bites from the original trilogy and make those the main plot points in this movie.
Yep.
And I think that's fine. We're not. We're gonna learn. We're not gonna learn a whole lot about Han Solo's origin specifically. I don't think. We're gonna see.
I hope not.
We're not gonna see his birth. We're not gonna see him kicking rocks down the street and that type of thing. But we are gonna see him partner up with Chewie, like you're saying, and see all the other things. And I think that'll be fine. My main concern is whether or not Alden Ehrenreich, which I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, can pull off acting like an actor who's acting like a character. That's a tough ask. I mean, he's a very talented actor, but this is a character that has very distinct personalities and very distinct little social cues and things like that. So it's tough to pull off.
We're all excited.
I'm not saying he can't do it. And I'm not saying he can't do it well enough that it's still a good movie, but as long as it doesn't take away from the film.
Isn't that part of the reason why they fired the two original directors? Because they made him pretty much. I think
they're making him a comedian.
Yeah, they made him seem like he was like Ace Ventura, pretty much.
Yes.
Or the understanding that I got was that they were basically trying to capture the feel of like a Guardians of the Galaxy, but with Han Solo.
Right.
Which. Yeah, I don't.
How could you? This is the other thing that I heard is they were ad-libbing a lot of it.
Right, a lot of it was Chris Miller and Phil Lord thrive on improv.
And how could you expect an actor to not only replicate and imitate Han Solo, but also do that improv?
Improv it.
That's incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult.
I couldn't imagine. No wonder they're having issues.
Yeah.
Because, if I was him, and I'm no actor, I haven't taken acting lessons, but I would imagine you need to stand in a mirror for hours practicing it over and over and watching it over and over, the same lines, to be able to nail the mannerisms,
knowing
the
Like,
inflections.
that's like being a musician and having to fill in for like Chick Corea, who is like a jazz god, basically.
Nobody knows who that is.
Yeah. So for those of you out there, Chick Corea, look him up. Jazz.
I watched Whiplash once. I feel like that's all I got.
But it's like
I just watched La La Land. I'm pretty sure I know everything about
Same
jazz
thing.
now.
Yeah.
It's like having to fill in for like Jimmy Page and Led Zeppelin, but improving every solo. There's just no way to fill the guy's shoes if you're going to improv.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
I love Donald Glover had a conversation with Billy D. Williams, and he's going on and on, Donald Glover, about the character of Lando Calrissian, and he said, like, I really think that his character came from this point of view and really had this backstory and stuff, this. Had this huge conversation with Billy, and at the end, he's not really saying anything, so Donald's like, well, what do you think? And he just goes, yeah, I don't know about all that, just be charismatic. Just be cool, and that's it. So I mean, but that's Lando.
Man, was he Lando in that second?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely,
in that
he
second,
was.
Billy D. Williams realized that he was never not Lando Calrissian.
Right.
And Donald Glover just said, "Okay." So I think he'll nail it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we are all excited to see Donald Glover. We're Donald Glover fans.
And
Yes,
Woody,
please.
And Woody Harrelson. I'm excited.
Well,
yeah.
this new movie with Woody Harrelson in another serious role. Did you guys see the trailer for that the other day?
I did not.
Is it Star Wars?
No, it is not Star Wars.
Okay, I don't watch anything. Not
I'm just
Star
saying,
Wars.
it looked like a very interesting film. I don't even remember the title of it, so now I feel like more of a schmuck.
That's right.
But at the same time, it's coming out. Check it out. Movies plug. I feel like I have to try to
Go
sell
ahead,
everything.
Google
now.
Woody Harrelson. Try to see his IMDb page. See what movie's coming out with.
Yeah.
Watch it for.
It was
sake.
it was a serious movie where he was in.
Sure.
Which he's done a few and far between of. But anyway.
Yeah, but just to wrap up our talk here about the Han Solo movie, Matt, who's sitting right here, he brought up something interesting today that, we were talking about Obi-Wan, and
don't get him started on this again, Richie.
oh yeah, we're not going to debate
be going
this
for 12 hours.
We're not going to debate it, but we were talking about Obi-Wan and these things that we heard about Obi-Wan and Anakin in the original trilogy, and then we got the prequels that showed us the details of those stories. And they did that without ruining the mystique of Obi-Wan.
Sure.
The prequels were not an Obi-Wan origin story. They just showed us a little bit more of the stories that we had already heard about. And so I think that the Han Solo movie could achieve that. It could show us details about these stories that we heard in the original trilogy, but do it without ruining the mystique of the character, which is what we love about Han Solo.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, everybody knows, and I mean, everybody. Maybe I shouldn't say
literally
that.
every single person.
Literally every
on
single
the
person
planet
that's ever
Earth.
watched Star Wars.
Absolutely.
But everybody, I mean, we all point to the cantina scene, and the original cantina scene
Right.
is the place in the moment where everyone felt that immersion.
Right.
Where you watched it and you were like, man, there's so many characters.
Yep.
They look so cool. I know nothing about them.
Right.
Now we're walking into this dark guy, Han Solo. Something sketchy's going on.
Who shot
But
first,
Just
by the way.
just shot a dude in the bar.
Right, like,
and he's
what
like,
the
now
heck?
he's hanging out with our heroes. Like, what?
Yeah, it just went from this weird, here's this guy in this weird outfit with two sons standing around in the desert. Like, what is this movie?
Right.
To all of a sudden, it opened Pandora's box of what is the Star Wars universe.
Right.
And that mystery and mystique of Han Solo is what makes Han Solo great.
Yeah.
And so I think if they're smart, they won't tell the story without telling, they won't ruin that.
Sure.
And if Kasten's writing it,
Right.
I trust him to do that.
I trust in Larry. Yeah.
But I think that's the one way that I know for a fact they would screw this movie is if they went and told an origin story, because it ruins the mystique of Han Solo.
we don't need to see Han Solo in space high school. We don't need to see
No, thank you.
none of
I don't
that.
think
We need to
Han
see
went to
Han
space high
Solo
school.
in
Probably dropped out.
Kessel
Probably
Run.
did, yeah. I think he seems
He probably
like a bit of a
TP'd to
dropout.
space high school.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't like a good old cowboy story in space, right?
There you go. So one last thing is we want to talk about something that's coming up, as I'm sure you all are marking down the days towards The Last Jedi. There is, I believe, 128 days remaining. Once 28 of those days have gone by, we're going to kick off something called our 100 Days of Star Wars. Ike has gone and made a calendar of all of the visual canon content that's currently out there, and we're going to watch it from start to finish in canonical order, resulting in our midnight premiere of The Last Jedi.
Yep.
So we're going to start off with a big watch party of the Phantom Menace. We're going to go and watch the Clone Wars, Attack of the Clones, and then watch the entirety of the Clone Wars series.
Bogged down a bit in the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
but...
gonna watch the movie as well.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, the movie's in there. I think
Yeah.
there's even when it gets around to the Rebels, the beginning of Rebels, there was even a YouTube mini series that was
Yes.
created before it. That's included.
Awesome.
So as far as I know, every visual canon media, there's going to be some weird.
Now we have more though with the Forces of Destiny.
With the Forces of Destiny, I'm going to have to add that. The other thing
Yeah.
is we're going to have to add in. By the time we're through 100 days,
Right.
there will be some more Rebels episodes
Right.
at the time. So I think I have a Saturday specifically set apart as a catch-up day for Rebels, for whatever's out.
Watch Rebels.
Right, to catch up with the Rebels for however many episodes are up until that point. But yeah, it'll end with The Force Awakens the Thursday before the Friday release, or you could watch it before you went to a midnight release. Or midnight releases, I guess, aren't really a thing anymore. They're more like 8 o'clock releases that
Yeah,
night.
8 o'clock
but
at night. Yeah.
on a Thursday, but it would end with
that
that.
would be December 15th.
Yes, December 15th.
Wait,
it would end
That
with
Friday.
Yeah.
December the 15th. Of
And yeah, just for clarity, this calendar schedules what you should watch. The calendar will tell you, if you follow the calendar, what you need to watch for that day.
We're going to make that available?
We can tweet it whenever we put this episode up. If people would like to follow along, and they can subscribe to the calendar, Google Calendar.
We'll put the calendar in our bio of our Twitter account. That's at the Canon Factory. If you guys want to go ahead and follow that and follow along with us. As always, we're going to keep this podcast going, and as we go throughout all that canon material, we'll be bringing our thoughts and seeing how that might tie into the new movie, and see what kind of themes that we can pick up on that might follow along as well.
Thoughts for your thoughts.
That was Brendan's thoughts for your thoughts. Do you guys have anything else?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good.
All right, well, I just want to thank you guys for visiting us. I want to go ahead and thank our sponsors, Gillette Razors and Dollar Shave Club, and hope to see you guys again next, was it a week and a half? I don't know what you're saying.
Rich, just go ahead and say it, bud.
Yeah. So, no, go ahead.
All right, well, thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time. All right, and thanks for joining us at the Canon Factory. You guys can go ahead and follow us on Twitter at the Canon Factory, where we'll be bringing you an elegant podcast for a more civilized age. Thanks again, and see you next time.